The laughter hit me like a slap. 200 people in silk dresses and black tuxedos sat beneath chandeliers that looked like they'd been pulled from a palace. Their laughter bounced off marble walls, filled every inch of the ballroom, and wrapped itself around me like a noose. My name is Ruth Dawson, and this was supposed to be the proudest night of my life. I paid $47,000, everything I had saved over 35 years of night shifts, so my daughter could have her dream wedding. And now, she was standing on that stage in her $3,000 gown, holding a champagne flute like she was queen of the world, and mocking me. "My mom," Emily said into the microphone, her voice slick with champagne and arrogance. "She's here tonight. Ruth, let's give her a round of applause." A ripple of polite clapping. My fingers dug into the white linen of the tablecloth. She worked as a custodian at Mount Sinai. Night shifts. Every night, I'd wake up to the smell of bleach. We lived in this tiny little apartment in Queens, paper-thin walls, hand-me-down furniture. I swear, you could hear everything. Laughter. Real, roaring laughter. She worked so hard, and honestly, it showed me exactly what I didn't want. I didn't want to struggle. I didn't want to live small. Someone at the next table let out a snort. Someone else raised their glass. My throat burned, but I kept smiling. I've spent a lifetime smiling when the world laughed at me. She gave me $47,000 for this wedding, Emily went on, tossing her hair like the punchline of a joke. And honestly, it's the best investment she'll ever make. Look where I am now. The room erupted. Glasses clinked. Flashbulbs popped. My daughter blew me a kiss like I should be proud. I wasn't. I was dying inside. Quietly. I glanced around Connor's family, seated like royalty, gold accents on the table. My chair pushed so far back I could barely see the stage. No spotlight, no mention, no seat near my daughter. Just me, at table 18. The woman who built everything. Invisible? My hand shook as I lifted the wine glass. My reflection stared back lined, tired, dressed in a clearance rack gown that suddenly felt like a costume. But then, a sound, a sharp clink. At table 12, a distinguished man with silver hair froze mid-sip. His face went pale. Slowly, he stood, eyes locked on me like he'd seen a ghost. Then he walked deliberately toward the DJ booth. "Excuse me," I heard him say, voice firm. "I need the microphone." The ballroom went silent. Connor's father rose. "Sir, who are you?" The man adjusted his cufflinks, his hand trembling just slightly. "My name is Dr. Richard Chen," he said. "Chief of Surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital." Emily's smile faltered. The night had just changed. Long before that ballroom, long before chandeliers and champagne, there was a small apartment in Queens, with peeling paint, and one flickering hallway light. That was where I built Emily's world. I was 24 when her father walked out. David left with a woman who wore too much perfume and called herself his fresh start. He gave me a crumpled check and a promise to stay involved. He never did. So I learned to work through the night. Mount Sinai became my second home. The smell of disinfectant still clings to my skin like old memories. 11 at night to 7 in the morning, mopping hallways, scrubbing floors, emptying bins while other people slept. The world was quiet at that hour. Just me, the buzz of hospital lights, and the steady beeping of machines keeping strangers alive. But every night had a purpose. When I clocked out, the city was barely waking. I'd ride the 7 train home, my shoes sticking to the floor, my back screaming. I'd stop at the bakery on the corner, 1 chocolate croissant, 1 orange juice, 1 smile for a little girl with tangled hair and sleepy eyes, Emily. She'd climb into my lap in her pajamas and whisper, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'll buy you a castle." I never wanted a castle. I just wanted her to feel safe. I scrimped and saved. 20 years of double shifts, tax refunds stashed away, bonuses untouched. Every dime went to her. To private school uniforms, violin lessons, new shoes when hers wore thin. And when she was accepted into college, I signed the loan papers with a shaking hand. That first tuition payment was more than I'd earned in 3 months. But I did it anyway. Because she was going to have a better life. She graduated with a degree in marketing, first in our family to wear a cap and gown. I was in the last row of the auditorium, clapping so hard my palms stung. She didn't look for me in the crowd, but I didn't care. I told myself she was nervous, overwhelmed. Then she met Connor, the boy from the world I could never touch. Old money, country clubs, linen napkins, and slowly, piece by piece, my daughter started to drift. The visits home became shorter, then less frequent. She began speaking softer, dressing sharper. She called less. When she did, there was always noise in the background, a life I wasn't part of. I remember the last time she came to my apartment before the engagement. She walked in, looked around, and said quietly, "It's so small, Mom." That night, after she left, I sat in the kitchen with the light off. I stared at the walls I'd painted, the floor I'd scrubbed, the table I'd bought secondhand. I'd given her everything, and somewhere along the way, she'd decided it wasn't enough. The night she called to tell me she was engaged, I cried. Not the quiet kind, the kind that shakes your chest and makes the room blur. I had dreamed of that moment, the little girl who promised me a castle finally building her own life. "Mom," Emily said, breathless, her voice sparkling through the phone. "Connor proposed. At Martha's Vineyard. It was perfect. You're going to love the wedding." I didn't hear the warning in her tone then. I was too busy pressing my palm to my heart. A week later, she came over, sitting across from me at the small kitchen table she'd once finger-painted on as a child. But she wasn't that little girl anymore. She was polished now. Different. "Connor's parents are helping with the wedding," she began. "But they want it to be elegant, classy, Cipriani ballroom, black tie. You understand, right?" I nodded. I didn't understand, but I nodded anyway. "They want both families to contribute. It's important you're invested. You're my mom, after all." Those last words stung. Not soft with love. Hard. Like a line drawn in the sand. "How much?" I asked. She said it so casually. 47,000. That's just your part. Connor's parents are covering the rest." My chest tightened. That was my entire retirement. 35 years of night shifts in a single number. I didn't tell her no. I couldn't. Because mothers like me don't say no. We say, "Whatever you need, sweetheart." I withdrew the money in 3 trips, each time my hands shaking a little more. She picked up the check like it was nothing. "This means we can upgrade the venue," she said, slipping it into her purse without a hug. Not a thank you, not an I love you. Just a transaction. From that moment, I became a ghost in my own daughter's wedding. Connor's mother handled the florist, the caterers, the invitations. Emily stopped calling me for opinions. "Connor's mom knows these things, Mom. Just let her handle it," she'd say with a smile too rehearsed. I was invited to one dress fitting. One. I remember making a soft suggestion about the sleeves, and she rolled her eyes. "Mom, please, it's couture." The venue was everything she dreamed of. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, a string quartet. I bought my dress at Macy's clearance for $89. I thought it was elegant. At the rehearsal dinner, I overheard Connor's mother whisper to a friend, "That's the mother? I thought she was part of the staff." I laughed softly to myself, pretending it didn't cut through me. I'd given everything to make her feel like she belonged in their world. I just didn't realize that in the process, I was erasing myself from hers. The morning of the wedding smelled like rain and roses. The venue sparkled like something from a movie, marble floors polished to mirrors, champagne flutes lined in perfect rows, candles flickering like tiny stars. I arrived early, dressed in my clearance rack navy gown. I'd pinned my hair myself. No stylist, no makeup team. Just me and the mirror in my small apartment. At the entrance, A woman in black with a clipboard stopped me. "Family or staff?" she asked. "Family," I whispered. But even to my own ears, it didn't sound convincing. They seated me in the third row. Third. Behind Connor's extended family, the lawyers, the country club friends. I sat there clutching my small purse, watching guests glide past me in silk and confidence. No one said my name. Upstairs, Emily was in the bridal suite. I wasn't invited. I had imagined helping her with her veil, maybe holding her hands like I did when she was little and scared of thunderstorms. But those were my dreams. Her reality didn't have a place for me in it. When the music swelled, I stood like everyone else. My daughter walked down the aisle in a gown worth more than my car. Her smile was radiant, but it wasn't looking at me. It was aimed at a future that didn't include the woman who built it. She didn't even glance at my seat. And then came the part that cracked something in me, the father-daughter dance. Not mine. His. David. The man who left her when she was 3, who missed birthdays, graduations, heartbreaks. She gave him the dance. Flashbulbs lit up the room as they twirled. She laughed, her head resting on his shoulder. I sat alone at table 18, my hands folded neatly in my lap, pretending I wasn't invisible. When dinner began, they served filet mignon and lobster tails. I looked down at the plate, thinking, I paid for this. I paid for all of this. Connor's father gave a speech about legacy. His mother spoke about family. No one mentioned my name. Not once. I waited. Maybe Emily would stand, thank me, acknowledge me, something. But when she finally walked up to the microphone, she didn't thank me. She turned me into a punchline. She called me inspiring. Then, a reminder of what not to become. She painted my sacrifices like stains she'd worked her whole life to scrub off. And they laughed, all of them. 200 people, dressed like royalty, laughed at the woman who gave her everything. And I sat there, smiling through the breaking. Somewhere behind me, a glass clinked. A chair scraped against the floor. A man stood, the groom's boss. His eyes were locked on me like a man who'd just recognized something he couldn't ignore. The laughter was still echoing when he said, "DJ, hand me the microphone." The laughter still rang in my ears when he rose from table 12. A tall man. Silver hair, pressed suit. Presence like the room suddenly owed him silence. He set his glass down with a soft clink that cut through the noise like a blade. "DJ," he said, voice calm but sharp. "Hand me the microphone." Every head turned. The DJ hesitated, glancing toward Connor's father. The man didn't repeat himself, he didn't need to. The mic was handed over. He walked to the center of the dance floor, slow, measured, as if each step carried weight. "My name," he said, adjusting the mic, "is Dr. Richard Chen, Chief of Surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital." The words fell into the ballroom like cold water. A murmur swept through the crowd. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Emily's champagne-fueled smile faltered for the first time that night. He turned not to Connor, not to the groom's family, to me. His eyes were soft and burning all at once. "I wasn't supposed to speak tonight," he began, voice steady. But when I heard that name, Ruth Dawson, I almost couldn't breathe. I froze. My name, spoken like it mattered. 23 years ago, he said. My daughter was in a car accident. She was 16. Internal bleeding. She was dying on my operating table. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I thought I was going to lose her. His hand trembled around the mic. The entire ballroom had gone silent. And in the middle of that nightmare, there was a woman mopping the hallway. She should have been home, but she stayed. She handed me coffee from her own thermos and said, "I have a daughter, too." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Connor's mother pressed a hand to her mouth. She came back the next night, and the next. She brought food. She sat with my wife in silence when no one else did. Not because she had to, because she cared. He swallowed hard. When the bills nearly ruined us, She left $1,200 in my locker with a note. For Lily. From someone who understands. I felt tears sting my eyes. I hadn't thought about that night in years. She's not just a custodian, he said, voice cracking. She's the reason my daughter is alive. She's shown more grace and humanity than most people in this room will show in a lifetime. The air shifted. Chairs creaked. No one dared look away. She gave everything she had so a stranger's child could live. And tonight, the child she raised stood here and mocked her. Emily's face crumpled like wet paper. Dr. Chen lowered the mic slightly. You should be ashamed, he said, not shouting, just honest. Every single one of you who laughed should be. Then he turned to me. Ruth Dawson, he said softly. You're the reason my family still exists. Someone began clapping. Then another. And then the ballroom erupted, not with laughter this time, but with applause. A standing ovation. For me, I didn't wait for dessert. The moment the applause ended, I slipped my purse over my shoulder and walked straight past the golden chairs, the crystal centerpieces, the people who suddenly looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. The heavy ballroom doors opened to the night air. Cold, sharp, clean. I breathed it in like oxygen. My heels clicked against the wet pavement as I stepped into the empty parking lot. The music was still faintly audible behind the walls, soft jazz, glasses clinking. Inside, my daughter was surrounded by everything she thought she wanted. Out here, I was surrounded by silence. I leaned against a parked car, my hand pressed to my chest, and let the tears fall. Hot, uncontrolled. Not the quiet kind this time, the kind that comes from something deep, something old. Years of swallowing pain, of pretending it didn't matter, finally clawing their way out. The door slammed behind me. Mom! Her voice. Sharp. Panicked. Emily ran across the parking lot, her gown dragging through puddles, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked less like a bride now and more like the little girl who used to crawl into my bed when the rain was too loud. Mom, please wait, she cried. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't. I turned slowly. You didn't mean it? My voice was calm, too calm. Her lips trembled. I was nervous. I had champagne. I was trying to be funny. Everyone expected. Don't, I whispered. Don't dress it up. You meant every word. She froze. You've been ashamed of me for years, Emily, I said. I saw it in every look, every excuse, every time you didn't invite me somewhere because my world didn't fit yours. Tears streamed down her face. That's not true. I love you. No, I said quietly. You love what I gave you. You love that I worked myself into the ground to give you a life you're not ashamed of. But you were ashamed of me. She collapsed to the pavement, the fabric of her dress pooling around her like broken silk. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want them to look at me the way they look at you. You thought their approval was worth more than my dignity. She covered her face, sobbing. The sound echoed across the lot, raw and unpolished. For a moment, I saw her not as the woman who'd humiliated me, but as the frightened child she used to be. But pain is heavier when it comes from the people you love most. I knelt just enough to look her in the eyes. I gave you everything, Emily. Everything. And tonight, you told the world I was your cautionary tale. She reached for me. I stepped back. Some wounds, I whispered, don't get fixed with apologies. Then I turned and left her crying in the parking lot. The morning after the wedding, my kitchen smelled like coffee and quiet. The walls felt heavier than usual. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it presses down on you. The voicemail light blinked red. Emily had called 12 times. Connor twice. I hadn't answered a single one. My retirement account was empty. My hands still smelled faintly of the floral perfume that clung to the ballroom. I sat at my small kitchen table, the same one where Emily once drew castles with broken crayons, and stared at the bank statement like it was a verdict. $47,000 gone. A soft knock on the door. When I opened it, Connor stood on the porch. No tuxedo this time. Just jeans, a gray hoodie, and a face that hadn't slept. "Mrs. Dawson," he said quietly. "May I come in?" I almost said no, but something in his voice, small, guilty, made me step aside. He walked into my living room like someone entering a church. He looked around slowly, at the faded couch, the family photos on the wall, the crooked lamp Emily and I had fixed with tape. "This is where she grew up," he whispered. It wasn't a question. "Yes." He sat at the table, fingers laced tightly. "I need to tell you something. Something Emily didn't." His throat worked as he swallowed. "My parents paid for half the wedding, $45,000. Emily told them she'd match it with her own trust fund. She said she had money from her father." I felt the floor shift beneath me. Connor's eyes were glassy. "She lied. She used your retirement. She didn't tell me until last night. I swear I didn't know. If I had—" I held up my hand. "Stop." For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the clock above the fridge. "She said you were fine," he whispered. "That it was extra money. That this was a dream you shared." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "She's always been good at rewriting things to make them prettier." He nodded, shame burning through him. "My parents want to pay you back. All of it. But I know it's not about the money anymore." No, it wasn't. The betrayal didn't live in the numbers. It lived in the way my daughter had looked at me like I didn't belong in the world she'd built. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Emily. I let it ring. And then, another call came in a number I recognized. Dr. Chen. "Ruth." His warm voice filled the kitchen. "I spoke with the hospital board this morning. We want to offer you a daytime position in volunteer coordination. Benefits, retirement plan. It's long overdue. You've spent decades taking care of others. It's time someone took care of you." My hand covered my mouth. For the first time in years, I didn't know what to say. Then another notification popped up on my phone. A video. Dr. Chen's speech. Someone had posted it online, and it was already going viral. Connor's parents' house looked like something out of a magazine. White columns, trimmed hedges, a driveway paved with stones so smooth you could almost see your reflection. I didn't want to be there. But Connor had called me 3 times, his voice steady but pleading. "Please, Mrs. Dawson, my parents want to talk to you. Not about money, about everything." So I went. The maid opened the door, but it was Patricia Montgomery, Connor's mother, who greeted me at the top of the steps. No pearls, no polished smile this time. Just bare eyes and a tremor in her voice. "Ruth," she said softly. "Thank you for coming." The living room felt too big for one conversation. Fire crackling, chandeliers above, portraits of people who'd never had to mop a floor at 3 a.m. I sat on the edge of the velvet couch like a woman in a stranger's world. Thomas Montgomery, tall, silver hair like his son's, leaned forward. "Mrs. Dawson." "Ruth," he corrected himself gently. "We owe you an apology." Patricia's hands twisted nervously. "We created the kind of world Emily felt she had to impress. We never said a cruel word to her, but we didn't have to. The expectations were already built into the walls." I stared at her. She still made her choice. "Yes," Thomas said evenly, "but we built the stage where she performed it." Before I could respond, a soft voice came from the hallway. "Mom?" Emily. Her wedding dress was gone. She wore a plain sweater, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked smaller somehow. Not like a bride, like a girl who'd just walked through the storm she caused. "I didn't know you'd be here," she whispered. "Connor asked me," I said. She stepped closer, hands trembling. "I've been going to therapy. Every day since the wedding. I'm trying to understand why I became this person." I let the words hang there. Then she sat on the floor in front of me, like she used to as a child, cross-legged, searching my face. "I told Connor's family lies. I told them you lived in Florida, that you were a nurse manager. I erased you, Mom. because I thought if I scrubbed out the parts of me that came from Queens, from you, I'd finally fit. Her voice cracked. And then Dr. Chen reminded everyone of who you really are. And I saw myself for what I'd become. Connor entered quietly behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. I told Emily something, he said, his voice low. Our marriage doesn't survive unless she makes this right. Truly right. Not for me. For you. Emily's breath hitched. She looked up at me, eyes red, voice shaking. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. I studied her. This wasn't the girl at the ballroom. This was the daughter I used to tuck in at night. But forgiveness wasn't a key you hand over. It's something earned, brick by brick. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said softly. But I'm ready to see if you can become someone worth forgiving. She nodded, tears spilling freely. That's enough, Mom. That's more than I deserve. The first time she showed up at my apartment after the wedding, she didn't say a word. No designer clothes, no carefully practiced smiles. Just Emily, standing in the doorway with her hair tied back and a broom in her hand. Can I help clean? She asked. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. For weeks, it became a quiet ritual. Saturday mornings, no makeup, no champagne, just the sound of sweeping floors and old Motown on the radio. She never tried to explain. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just showed up. And sometimes, that says more than words. One afternoon, she found an old photo album. Bent corners, coffee stains. She sat on the floor, thumbing through pages of a little girl in thrift store clothes and pigtails. You were 25 here, she whispered, pointing at a picture of me holding her outside our first apartment. I didn't realize how young you were. I sat beside her, the same kitchen table looming in the background. You were my world, I said softly. She swallowed hard. And I tried to erase you. Across town, Connor's mother was changing too. Patricia invited me to lunch at her country club. It was a place built for polished people, not night shift custodians, but instead of fitting me into their world, she began stepping out of it. She told me how she'd walked out of a meeting after someone mocked a waiter's accent. I thought about that wedding night, she admitted, and how we all laughed before we knew who we were laughing at. Connor quit his high-paying law job to join legal aid. Emily left her corporate firm and applied to work at a nonprofit. I'm done performing, she told me. Meanwhile, the video of Dr. Chen's speech had exploded online. Millions of views. Donations started pouring in from strangers who said my story reminded them of their mothers. I used that money to launch a scholarship, the Night Shift Fund, for kids whose parents work when the world sleeps, the page read. One evening, Emily knocked on my door with a stack of scholarship flyers in her hands. I want to help, she said. Not like a savior, like a daughter. And for the first time in a long time, I saw her not as the woman who humiliated me, but as the girl who used to hug me so tight I could barely breathe. Forgiveness didn't arrive like lightning. It came slow, quiet. In every dish she washed, in every shift she showed up for, some nights I'd catch her watching me like she was trying to memorize something she'd almost lost forever. And maybe she was. The house was filled with the smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and laughter that didn't sting anymore. Thanksgiving. Emily moved through the Montgomery's kitchen like she belonged there, not as someone pretending, but as someone learning to be real again. Patricia handed her a tray. Connor carved the turkey, and I watched from the corner of the room. Not invisible this time. Present. After dinner, Emily asked me to walk with her in the garden. The night was cold, our breaths floating like smoke in the air. She stopped under a string of lights that Thomas had hung across the hedges. Mom, she whispered, her hand shoved into her sweater sleeves. I want to pay you back. All of it. The $47,000 I've been saving. I shook my head gently. I don't want your money, Emily. Tears welled in her eyes. Then what do you want? I want my daughter back. I said softly. The one who used to call me her hero, without shame in her voice. She lowered her head, and for the first time since the wedding, I saw not guilt but change. Real change. The kind that doesn't beg for forgiveness, but works for it. You're getting her, she whispered. A month later, I stood at the hospital in my blue uniform for the last time. My retirement party was small but loud, filled with laughter that came from love, not cruelty. Dr. Chen gave a speech that made the nurses cry, but it was Emily's turn at the microphone that froze the room. She walked up slowly, no script in her hand, just a shaking breath. My mother, she said, taught me everything I needed to build a good life. And for a long time, I was too ashamed to admit it. I thought pretending to be someone else would make me worthy. But the truth is, I was already standing on the shoulders of someone extraordinary. Her voice cracked. I mocked the very woman who gave me everything. But she didn't let my cruelty define her. She let grace do the talking. She always has. The room erupted in applause. I didn't hide this time. I stood tall. Weeks later, the first night shift scholarship was awarded to a 17-year-old girl named Maria. Her mother worked the night shift at a nursing home. When Maria hugged me, it felt like handing a torch to someone who understood. Emily was there too, at my side, not in front. She leaned close and whispered, "You'll always be the mother I'll never deserve, but I'll spend my life trying to be worthy of you." For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt seen. And this time, when the room rose to its feet, it wasn't for a speech. It was for a woman who mopped floors, raised a daughter, and refused to be anyone's punchline.